So, what is the bargaining mix in a negotiation? Well, in summary, the bargaining mix is nothing more than the interests at stake in the negotiation. That is what you're negotiating over. Now, this seems like a simple concept at first glance, but in reality it's a little more complex in that there are various types of interest. Well, obviously there's a substantive interest, the actual thing that you're negotiating over, whether it's a price, whether it's ownership or possession of something, whatever that may be, there's your substantive interest. Now, there are also procedural interests at stake. That things like fairness, right? Someone getting what they're owed, someone being showed the amount of deference that they deserve or the respect that they deserve. If that is missing in a negotiation, it makes a huge difference. So in addition to the exact thing that you're negotiating over, right? The dispute, the object, the value, whatever that may be, how you go about negotiating is also an interest. And so that's part of the bargaining mix as well. Also, oftentimes negotiations are characterized by a specific relationship that you have with another person, whether it's employer-employee, whether it's vendor-purchaser of goods, whether it's friends, that type of thing. So there are a number of different types of relationships that could be at stake in a negotiation, right? And this is also an interest because it adds an additional layer of underlying context and a form of value that must be accounted for in the negotiation. So once again, you have a procedural interest and a relationship-based interest in addition to the core interest, the substantive interest that you're negotiating over. And lastly, there's something we call interest in principle. Now, an interest in principle is basically a deeply held or strongly held belief, okay? So, interest in principle is the idea that in a negotiation, I'm going to seek to forward or I'm going to pursue this belief that I have about something, even if it's not a substantive interest that will affect me in some way, even if there's nothing procedural about it, even if there's nothing that we share in the context of a relationship. If there's a deep held belief that I, for some reason, want to forward in the negotiation, then I'm going to act in accordance with that. You often see this in politics where individuals may have a belief about something. That belief may not affect them, or they may believe that it could affect them, but in a way they're simply part of an overall belief system or organizational collection of beliefs. So whether they have a personal stake in that interest or no, it is something ingrained in them that it is something they should believe. So they'll pursue it diligently. So anyway, those are the types of interests that you're going to find as part of the bargaining mix: substantive, procedural, relationship-based, and then interest in principle. Now, one important thing to remember as you're developing the bargaining mix, it is important to remember that adding as many interests as possible to the negotiation can increase the opportunity for what we call an integrative negotiation, the type of negotiation where where both parties can be benefited by the negotiation, right? It's not distributive or finite in nature. So with that being said, in identifying interests for the bargaining mix, you should brainstorm, you should research possible interests that could exist. That means researching yourself, researching the other person, the context of the situation. That can be indirect research or direct research, whichever or either that is available. And then you may even consult with others, such as experts or third parties who know the situation, the context, that type of thing, to identify the appropriate set of interests available, again, in the negotiation.